And now there's no one better to go to than Philadelphia's #1 hockey beat writer. It is Charlie O'Connor coming to us live from Tampa, Florida. Charlie, before we get to my nonsense, your thoughts on the game and anything that stood out to you from the team's post-game comments.
Yeah, I think my primary thought on this game is kind of as simple as that's more like it, because I know you said after Tuesday's game that you came away like, yeah, that wasn't that bad, and I was pretty negative on the game. 6 shots on goal the final 40 minutes. They obviously blew the game late. I came away dissatisfied with that performance. This performance, I know they only score 1 goal. This to me was as complete of a game as they've played in weeks. They took shots. They created chances. They played really good defense. Ivan Fedotov was easily the best he's looked since coming over to North America. Like, this is the kind of game. And to me, like, if they would have lost this game in a shootout or lost it in overtime, I would have felt the exact same way. This was a good performance by the Philadelphia Flyers. And I think that was the consensus by everybody in the room. John Tortorella made it clear that, look, we have a long way to go before we're where we want to be. And there's a lot of things that he feels like they still need to clean up, but you can build off of this. This is a game that on a lot of levels, offensively, defensively, goaltending-wise, they can build off of this game. And that would have been the case whether they won or not. That said, the fact that they won is still huge. I mean, they no longer have the worst record in hockey, or tied for it, which is definitely good for their confidence and their psyches, to be sure. But also, like, Tampa's a good team. They're not a great team anymore. They're not as good as they used to be. But, like, they're going to make the playoffs. That's the expectation. They're no scrub. And they went out there, and really, I would say overall, I think they outplayed the Lightning in this game. They kept pushing. I would say they outplayed them, and that makes me feel good about where the Flyers are right now. Much better than I felt on Tuesday.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, Tuesday was just kind of, hey, look, they scored some goals, and Carolina does what they do. Like, I was unsurprised by what happened, because Carolina is a cup contending team that possesses the puck, and the Flyers had been playing terrible up to then. It was really the pace of the game more, and that they scored a few goals. But this looked like the team more from last season, especially the first 2/3, where not only did they suppress shots, what they've been doing more of. Tampa doesn't get a ton of shots. They shoot for a pretty high percentage, but they suppress shots and got their own for one of the first times all season. Like, how many times have they even won the shot battle this season? Like 2 or 3, maybe? I would just a guess. I don't want to do Michkov yet, because there was some good other stuff that happened in this one. The first thing is Fedotov. He played well tonight. Like you said, definitely the best he's looked since coming over. Do you think this start could get him into the mix as the number 2 again?
I truly don't know. I don't know whether this has him jump Kolosov. Obviously, if Kolosov's hurt and he's out for an extended period of time, then yeah, I guess he is. He might be the number 1, because Harrison's not quite ready yet. He's close. He's practicing. He's been on the ice for 2 straight morning skates. So he's clearly trending in the right direction. But he's not available yet. Kolosov wasn't available today. I mean, they signed an e-bug basically just to be there in case. So to answer your question, in the short term, it certainly puts him back in the mix. Now, after Harrison and Kolosov are healthy, not sure. But this is the first time, and I saw a lot of people say this on Twitter, and it feels like a backhanded compliment, but it doesn't make it any less accurate. This is the first time he really has looked like an NHL goalie. Like, it is. Aside from maybe that very first appearance when he came in relief at the end of last season, his very first time he was in goal. This is the closest he's looked to being a guy who you can say, yeah, like, I don't know if this version of Fedotov is a high-end NHL goalie. Like, he still looked kind of slow, moving laterally side to side. The goalie allows to Kucherov in the first period. Like, he's a bit too far out of his net. He gets pulled away and then can't get back over. Like, that's not the best way to play that, to be sure. But made a lot of big saves, used his size. There was one play I noticed in the third period where they tried to do essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
They try to do a wraparound. And what does he do? He doesn't panic. He just sticks his enormous leg out and does it that way. Takes advantage of the fact that he's enormous. And it's not like that's going to stop being an advantage of his. Like, I imagine that that's how he made most of his saves in the KHL, just taking advantage of his size. This was the first game from start to finish where it looked like he was legitimately a 6'7", 6'8" goalie. He looked every bit the part in this game. I don't know if this is going to change the entire direction of his NHL career. I don't know if the Flyers are even going to make it so this puts him above Kolosov on the depth chart, but it at least gives you some hope. It gives you some hope that there's something there, and that's reassuring. Definitely feel better about him now than I felt 24 hours ago.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we were joking in pregame, what if they just start the emergency guy? Because, like, what's it going to be? Worse? And then Fedotov comes out and has the game he had. And more than anything, because there was some luck involved. Like, there are some flubbed shots and misses where it was like, but every goalie needs that. Sure. My hope is just it's a building block. Like, he's actually tasted success for the first time. It's his first career win. Now maybe he can stop looking so panicked. And I thought that was the biggest part of the shootout, honestly, was he looked normal in the shootout. It's the most normal he has looked since he's taken over the net when he came over last season. Like, he looked like a regular goalie during the shootout. So maybe that's something for him to build on. All right, I do want to ask about Mish now, Charlie, because that was the big story coming in.
Sure.
And I know you were there, so you didn't hear the broadcast. The ESPN team wasn't ready to talk about any Flyer but Michkov. They had prepared. They had prepared for that, and then when he's scratched, they were like, "Oh no!" But he didn't suit up tonight, and that's the story. But I watched your practice notes video today, and we've always said that this was a real possibility at some point. I don't think Mish has had a huge impact on games outside of he had the one assist a couple last game, but just haven't been hearing his name enough, honestly. How do you feel about the decision to bench him personally? Like, I know this is John Tortorella, it's a teaching tool, but what was your take on the decision as Charlie O'Connor, Philadelphia Flyers analyst?
Yeah, I think my take on the decision, and I haven't pushed it out on Twitter yet because the game was actually interesting. Yeah. So it was like, okay, let's focus on the game. I did publish a story for diehards breaking down why the Flyers decided to scratch Matvei Michkov, when he might be back in the lineup. I'm going to say right now, I don't know if he's going to be back in the lineup on Saturday. He might not be back in the lineup until they come back home. I don't know if that decision has been made yet, but just saying, I don't know if this is just a one-game thing. It might be a two-game thing. So know that. That's in the piece. Yeah. But there's a lot more in there. I talked to some people around the organization, got a better read on what's going on. So check that out for PHLY diehards. If you're not a PHLY diehard, become a member and check out that story. But going back to my personal opinion, because that piece is more talking about why the Flyers did it, not really me, making an op-ed on my opinion. I think where I'm coming from is that it's hard for me to get too worked up about it because I expected this to happen at some point. And I do think that the issues with his 5-on-5 play are real. I've watched enough tape. I've seen enough to think that, like, the Flyers aren't just making this up. Yeah, his underlying 5-on-5 metrics are good. They are, absolutely. But his 5-on-5 defensive metrics aren't very good. And I think part of that is because the Flyers don't have the puck enough when he's on the ice, and I'd like him to improve so that they have the puck more so he can do more cool things offensively and create more great chances because he's an extremely skilled, extremely creative player. I think that those things are real. Those issues are real, and I get why the Flyers are trying to break those habits quickly. Also, it's John Tortorella. He was always going to do this, and we talked about this dating back to the summer, that there's a part of this, I think, that might be Tortorella making it clear to everybody in that room that Michkov isn't getting special treatment. That, everybody in that room has been in those tape study meetings over the last 2 weeks when they've been harping on the same things with Michkov. You're not doing this well enough, got to do it better. Because that's how those tape study sessions work. Everybody's in the room. Everybody's hearing their critiques. And they've been hearing, and I know this, they've been hearing for the last couple of weeks, them pointing out the same issues with Michkov. And everybody in that room knows that if it was another player, they'd be on the verge of getting sad because they keep pointing out a problem and Michkov hasn't been able to address it with his play. So there's an element to this where I think they almost not had to, because you don't have to do anything, but for them to stay consistent in the way that they are coaching this team, specifically John Tortorella, it was building to this. I also think that their view was that Michkov isn't the only person making these mistakes. He's not the only person that's disconnected from the attack and the offensive zone. He's not the only person who isn't swinging back up to be the third man high. There's a lot of guys who are doing it. When you bench Michkov for that, when you bench the golden boy, the guy who the media is obsessed with, who the fans understandably are obsessed with, it tells everyone on that team that no one is immune from this criticism, that the coaching staff is taking this critique seriously, and they're even willing to bench the kid who everybody's super excited about to make a point of how important it is that they fix this problem. I don't think it's a coincidence that this is the most connected they've looked offensively in the offensive zone in weeks, that it came after the scratch. Because I do think it wasn't just meant to be a message to Michkov, which it very much is. They want to make him a better player over the long term, and that's part of it. I also think scratching him was a little bit of a message to everybody else that, look, if we're willing to scratch him, we'll scratch anybody. So you guys better get your crap together. And I think that played into maybe a little bit of why they looked more connected in the offensive zone tonight. I really do.
Hey, Charlie, listen, I get Torts, and this is what he does, right? And this is like the standard he holds for everybody. And like, listen, if it's one game, like I think we're all fine with that. But where I'm kind of coming from it, and Bill brought up a really good point during pregame, what we've kind of seen from Michkov is that like some of these bigger games with the bigger stars, whether it be McDavid or even like tonight, you know, you're going up against Kucherov, right?
Right.
He feels like he does step up in those type of moments. And I feel like everyone's a different type of learner. So like we've seen in other games where, you know, Torts will sit Michkov out, you know, for a couple of shifts, teach him on the bench, and then he puts him out there. So I guess like, you know, I feel like is this the right move exactly to do with Michkov, I guess, is where I'm trying to go with?
Well, I guess we're going to find out. Like the biggest risk of doing this is not that they're going to piss off the fans, because you know what? Right. Number one, like Flyers fans are always mad. It's basically the Hulk and the Avengers. Like, what's your secret? Your secret is you're always angry. Like, if you're trying to avoid angering Flyers fans, like, you might as well just throw up your hands, because they're always going to be angry about something, even if you try to do everything that they want. So whatever, don't worry about that. That's not the risk. Yeah, they can deal with a bunch of fans yelling on Twitter. They do that every day anyway. The risk here is whether it results in Michkov responding in a negative way. They believe he's going to respond positively. And to be clear, they think he's going to be mad. They know he's mad. Guys are mad when they get scratched. He should be mad. He should be like, no, I want to play. I don't deserve to be scratched. I got 10 friggin' points in 13 games. I'm leading the Calder race. You scratch me? How dare you? They want him to feel that way. But what they don't want him to do is they don't want him to sulk. They want him to basically have that FU mentality of, you know, when I get back in, I'm going to show this coach that he was wrong. I'm going to show him that it was a mistake. That's what they want, and that's what they think they're going to get. The risk, though, is that he just tunes out the coach. Now, they don't think that's going to happen, but when you do these things, that's always a risk, especially when you're dealing with a player who, number one, can't speak English that well. Number two, they don't know all that much about him yet. He hasn't been here that long. They don't know all the idiosyncrasies. They don't know how he's going to respond to these things. So it's a risk. It's absolutely a risk that he might not handle this in the best way. My guess is that he'll handle it fine, and it'll just give him more fuel, more motivation to prove this jerk coach wrong. I think that's the way it's going to play out. But I can't deny that there is a risk element here, just like there was a risk element at the end of last season when he benched Sean Couturier. Like, when you make these big moves, you are taking a risk. Now, I don't know whether that ultimately was the good move or the bad move. Obviously, they missed the playoffs, so my guess is that it might have shaken out that room in a way that was negative, but we don't have to relitigate that. My point is that this is a big move, so it's a risk. They think it's a risk worth taking because they think he's going to benefit over the long term. I don't think they care. Like, JP, I don't think they care that much about, like, well, he missed a game against Tampa against Kucherov, because you know what? He's going to play Kucherov probably 40 more times in his career. Like, that's more something that just the fans are going to be disappointed about, because, like, the fans want to see Michkov as much as possible, because the fans are understandably excited, care about that. They want him to be the best player in the long term. They think this is going to help in that way. The risk, though, is what if he takes this the wrong way? And that's just something we're going to see.
Charlie, one stupid question for you, and then we'll move on. with Nikita Kucherov, probably the best Russian player in the league right now, on the other side, not to mention Vasilevsky going for his 300th win, does this count as scratching Michkov in his hometown?
Was this as close as he could get? Maybe.
Is this the
I don't know.
closest thing he could do?
I mean, either it would either be this or Ovechkin.
Or
right?
Ovechkin,
Scratching the first game against Ovechkin.
He played against Kaprizov, he played against Ovi, but here's two legitimately legendary Russians. You're not playing tonight, kid.
Sorry.
That's funny to me. Before we get to 3 stars, I want to talk about Joel Farabee. He again wasn't. He doesn't end up on the score sheet, but I thought he was one of the most notable forwards out there tonight. He was definitely making some things happen. His teammates handle passes or just, a little bit more on a shot here or there. He could have had a few points. What are you seeing out of Farabee right now?
He seems close, man. He really does. And I think it's interesting. John Tortorella has been more than willing over the last week and a half to just bury guys, bury Owen Tippett, bury Morgan Frost. He's willing to go out there in front of the media and just be like, yeah, we need more. They're not playing well. Whenever Farabee comes up, he's like, yeah, he's playing well. He's just not getting rewarded. And I actually thought that might have been a little charitable. Some games he's played well. Other games I thought he's been invisible. Tonight, though, he was everywhere. He could have easily had 2 or 3 points in this game. And if he keeps playing like this, I know there are a lot of people on Twitter, I see them in my mentions, who are out on Joel Farabee. They've just decided, I'm done with this guy. I'm not there. I think he's a good player, and I do think he's on the cusp. That said, he still has to get over the cusp. He has to get over that threshold and actually turn these good plays into points. And some of that's out of his control. Some of that is other guys got to finish when he sets them up. But a lot of that's on him, too. He has to keep making these plays. And if he does, he is ultimately going to get rewarded, but he can't get frustrated. He can't start thinking man, the world's against me, nothing's going my way. And then he falls back into a slump and goes back to not being a nightly impact contributor. Tonight, he was an impact contributor, even if he didn't end up in the score sheet. And if he gives you 2, 3, 4 straight games like this, he's going to end up on the score sheet, because this is the kind of process that gets you goals and assists. It didn't tonight. It will in the future, but he's got to keep playing like this to get that reward, and we'll see if he can.
All right, it is now time for Charlie O'Connor's 3 stars of the game. Charlie, hit us with star number 3.
So star number 3, another guy who didn't end up on the score sheet, but I thought had a really strong game, Sean Couturier. I thought Couturier was everywhere in this one. He didn't get rewarded in the same way, but his game reminded me a lot of the way he played against Minnesota. He was owning the net front and low slot. We had a couple tips that nearly went in, deflections. He was right there. He was battling in front. That line with him, Tippett and Konechny was clearly the team's best all game long. I thought Couturier looked real, real good in this one. Kind of a bummer he didn't get rewarded with at least an assist, but by the eye test, he killed it. And kind of like Joel Farabee, if he plays like that every night, he's going to get rewarded, even if he didn't get rewarded in this one. So for that reason, Sean Couturier is my 3rd star.
And to your point, the coach rewarded him. First time all season, he's played back-to-back games over 20 minutes. 2011 at Carolina, 23-27 tonight.
23, wow.
Yeah,
wow.
At Tampa. So Torts must like what he's seeing as well. Charlie, star number 2.
2nd star, I'm going to go with Owen Tippett. It just seems like he's finally getting going. And that goal, the goal he scored on Tuesday, that was a goal scorer's goal. That was just a pick in the corner snipe. This one was just a get the puck on net. And I do think he took advantage of the fact that Konechny is going down the wing as well, because probably that lets Vasilevsky get a little bit off of his angle. But that's a goal that you get as a reward for all the shots that you've taken over the course of a year. You're going to get a fortunate thing where hey, you just happen to get that backhander at the exact right angle and it hits the exact right spot and you get rewarded. It just seems like he's playing freer. Obviously, he scores the game winner in the shootout as well. It seems like he's just playing with more confidence, which makes sense. Puck's finally starting to go in for him. Look, the Flyers need Owen Tippett to be they really need him over the long term to take a step forward beyond where he has been the past 2 years. But at the very least, in the here and now, they need him to be the guy he was the last 2 years. And he hadn't been over the first, 12 games. Last 2 games, It might be finally starting to come back. Tippett, obviously, with the huge goal that keeps them from getting shut out, and then having to take this as a moral victory rather than just an actual victory. Look, moral victories are great. Real victories are better. If Owen Tippett doesn't come through, they probably don't get a real victory. So for that reason, Owen Tippett, my second star.
And now it's time for Charlie O'Connor's first star of the game.
Yeah, this is Fedotov. It's got to be Fedotov. And look, he wasn't perfect. You'd like to see him play that Kucherov wraparound a bit better, not get pulled so far out of his net. But beyond that, didn't give up a single goal. Didn't give up a goal in a shootout either. Like, he was as good as you can expect him to be. And I think what's even more notable is just how unexpected it was. Like, we didn't expect him to start this game. Obviously, Kolosov gets banged up in the pregame skate, the morning skate this morning. Leaves a little bit early. They end up having to bring Fedotov in. I don't know the next time they were going to play Ivan Fedotov. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I was getting the sense that Kolosov was going to play every game on this trip. Then Ersson was going to come back in, and it was going to go back to being those two. And maybe Fedotov was eventually going to either get a conditioning stint or just straight up sent down to the minors at some point in the next week. He has changed the narrative maybe of his season. At the very least, now they have to think, maybe we do keep 3 goalies. 2 guys are a little banged up. Maybe they suffer another injury. Fedotov, for the first time, looked like an NHL goalie. Maybe he can build on this. I wouldn't say I was out completely on Fedotov. I thought it was possible that he could do some remedial work over time. I didn't think he was going to be able to do it as quickly as he did. Like, I thought if this is going to work, he's going to have to go down to the AHL for a while. He's going to have to rebuild his game. It's going to take months. And then maybe in the second half, he can come up and be better. I didn't think that after a 2-week stint on the bench, he was going to come out looking not even great, but just this much better than he did the last couple of times he's been in net. And to his credit, he found a way. Now, whether this is sustainable, I don't know. But for this game, he played against a legitimately good team with a lot of high-end talent, and he made a bunch of big saves. And the Flyers don't win this game if he doesn't go out there and put together a really strong performance in a really tight situation, with really no other goalie option. Like, if he would have been bad, he would have given up 10 goals tonight, because I don't think they were putting that E-bug in. Like, the cavalry was not coming for Ivan Fedotov, and he held down the fort. He held down the fort with a really strong performance. For that reason, he's my number 1 star tonight.
Ivan Fedotov, the number 1 star. He became tonight the 51st Flyers goalie to record a victory for the franchise, tying Cam Talbot for 50th. One more, Charlie, and he'll move into a tie for 49th with Cal Peterson.
All
right. Flyers legends. All right, Charlie. That's
Charlie, real quick, because
go ahead.
People are asking right now on social media, did the Squirrel saxophone song make a comeback this year?
I didn't hear it. I heard a couple songs that I didn't recognize. Had not heard the Squirtle sax song. I can say that Ivan Fedotov did get the wrestling belt tonight.
Nice.
Well deserved.
Songs Charlie didn't recognize. My God. What could those even be?
You're going to have to Shazam like Zach Berman. All right.
There you go. All right. That is Philadelphia's number 1 hockey beat writer, Charlie O'Connor, coming to us live from Tampa. He'll be back with us in postgame from Sunrise. Charlie, go enjoy Miami, while you're down there. I'm just saying. Maybe go out a little. Why not? All right, Chuck. I'll talk to you on Saturday.
All right. See you guys.
We all silly like the mayor.